today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back, we're here to fight back.
Yes.
Now, when this decision came out earlier today, it's an unacceptable decision, but not an unexpected decision. Because this isn't even really the Roberts Court. It's the Trump Court.
Yes.
And what we would expect from the Trump Court is an effort to continue their scheme to suppress the vote and rig the midterm elections and beyond. Because these extremists have failed America in every possible way. They failed on the economy, they failed on health care, they're failing as it relates to this reckless and costly war of choice. The extremists have completely and totally failed America.
That's right.
So they've concluded, aided and abetted by the Trump court, that they have to cheat to win.
Yes.
Let's be real for a second. Have you ever felt like the news is speaking a language specifically designed to keep you confused and on edge? Because they throw out words like racial gerrymandering, Section 2, and constitutional crisis, but they never actually stop to explain what any of that means for you, your family, or your neighborhood. So we are seeing this hit a breaking point right now. And in 2026, if you've been watching the headlines, the Supreme Court just handed down a massive decision regarding how congressional districts are drawn, and the media is calling it a devastating blow. But from my perspective, it's a long overdue reality check for a political system that has become obsessed with sorting Americans into boxes based on the color of their skin. Think about it. We are living in a time where common sense feels like a radical act, and the government has spent decades drawing special maps, quote unquote special maps, because they claim that unless people are grouped together by race, they won't be represented fairly. But I want you to look around your own life. Do you only talk to people who look like you? Do you only care about the issues that affect one specific race? Of course not. You care about the price of groceries. You care about the safety of your street. You care about whether your kids are getting a real education. Yet the political establishment is fighting tooth and nail to keep us divided in these artificial strongholds. So I want to dive into a deeper conversation today, and we're going to look at why these race-based maps are actually failing the very people they claim to help. And we're going to look at the incentive structure of politics, the hidden rules that determine why some neighborhoods stay stuck, while the politicians in charge stay in power for 40 plus years. And this isn't just about a court case, it's about a phenomenal shift in the American mind. As people are waking up, they are realizing that a government that sees color first and character second is a government that is stuck in the past. So hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Now I want you guys to check this out.
Good morning. Okay, so this at first blush here is a win for the plaintiffs who were not black plaintiffs. They were non-minority voters who challenged this decision. These two districts that were minority majority, essentially Louisiana had drawn up districts and then they were told in a legal battle that they had not represented black and minority voters sufficiently. They went back and drew a second district. So they had two of these minority majority districts. Well, then non-black voters sued and said, this is now violating our rights on the basis of race. So it looks like this is a 6-3 decision. There is one concurrence here, but it looks like the dissent sticks together with Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. But here's what the majority says. They say in some, because the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an additional majority-minority district, no compelling interest justified the state's use of race in creating SB 8. That was those two new districts. That map is an unconstitutional gerrymander, and its use would violate the plaintiff's constitutional rights. Now, this opinion is almost 100 pages long, so we're going through to see if it says something more broadly about the Voting Rights Act. That had been the fear on the left, that somehow this decision, if it was favorable for those challenging these maps, that it would somehow do a big chunk out of the Voting Rights Act. Haven't gotten to language that suggests that yet. It sounds like this decision is primarily about what happened in Louisiana. So we'll keep digging through this. But for right now, it's a win for those who were challenging these two minority majority districts. Now, as we read through this and figure out the broader implications, there were 20 plus districts across the country that would have potentially lined up with this decision. They could be open to challenges that they were drawn on the basis of race, or that it was the primary factor that was used in drawing those districts. Most of those are throughout the South. So we'll look to see if there's enough sweeping language in this particular decision that may have a domino effect on some 20 other districts. Could be huge for the midterms. We'll continue to read through.
So to understand why everyone is losing their minds, we have to explain what redistricting actually is in plain English, because every 10 years the country does a census to see where people live. Based on those numbers, states have to draw new maps for their congressional districts. It sounds simple, but here's where it gets messy. For years, the theory has been what we have to create majority minority districts, basically districts where a Pacific minority group makes up over 50% of the population. The idea was that this guaranteed a minority representative would get elected. But here's what this actually looks like in real life. In Louisiana, they were recently pushed to draw a second black majority district. The state did it, but they did it by literally carving up the state based on race. The Supreme Court just looked at that and said no. They ruled a 6-3 vote. They used race as the primary reason to draw a map is a violation of the Constitution. And honestly, I'm 1,000% with them, because when you engineer an outcome, you kill competition. Think about it in a sports league, like a sports league. If the league decided before the season started that Team A was guaranteed to win the championship because of where they're located, would Team A even bother practicing? Would they try to get better? No. They'll just coast. And this is exactly what has happened in political strongholds across the South. Take South Carolina's 6th district. You got Jim Clyburn, has been a representative there since 1993. I wasn't even born yet. That's over 30 years. If guaranteed racial representation was the key to success, that district should be the wealthiest, safest place in the country. But if you look at the data, it is consistently one of the poorest areas with some of the most struggling schools. And this is where it doesn't add up. The politicians tell you these maps empower you, but the reality is they insulate the politician. When a district is safe for one party because of a gerrymandered map, that politician doesn't have to listen to you. They don't have to fix the potholes in your district. They don't have to bring in new businesses. So why would they? They know they can't lose the race. So from my perspective, these race-based districts have become wastelands of poverty because the lack of competition has led to a lack of results. I give you the hood, for example, the ghetto, slums, whatever you want to call it. The reason why things won't get fixed because if a politician could automatically stay in a seat all the way from 1993, why would they? They don't have to earn their position. So if they don't have to work for nothing, what's the simple fact of doing anything if it's already guaranteed in the palm of their hand that they're going to be what they want to be, which is being in power regardless of who say what or what say what. So really, it gives a hypocritical standpoint of, do Democrats really stand for a democracy? Because democracy is only the simple fact of the popular vote. But how can it be a popular vote if the population that voted on a majority of that person, it won't even matter because they're already guaranteed to be upheld and stay in that spot? So is it really a democracy, or is it framed as a democracy while keeping you not really open or seeing to the reality of how things are mapping out, as long as they tell you what sound good, but not actually doing in action what is truth? I'm just asking a question. So what this court decision does is break that cycle. It says that no seat is owned by a race or a party. Every candidate has to go out and earn every single vote based on their ideas and their agenda. So now it takes you to realize that, so now if someone's in the ghetto, the reason why the ghetto isn't being fixed or the hood isn't being fixed is because of the simple fact that if you got the candidate already in this position since 1993 and the map is already drawn out where in their district they're going to win automatically because it's mapped out based on a certain minority group, and within that population, that minority group, if they vote, majority of that race is already voting um voting in regards of if the map is already mapped out to where it makes the votes already sway their way, you don't have to earn nothing. So if the politician feel as though they don't have to earn nothing, are you really working for the people, or things have just been drawn out to where once the individual was in position, instead of actually putting policy and things in place to help the people who voted them in, they put things in place to empower themselves. So it became party over people. And all this is doing is putting people back over party as it what it should be. So now I want you guys to check out this next clip in regards of this individual who had a perspective, and we're going to speak about it in an objective way, because at the end of the day, this is for all people, no matter the race.
Is happening again. Whenever Black people make political, social, or economic progress, white people try to stop it. That's what just happened when the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, ruled against a Black congressional district in Louisiana. The NAACP called it a devastating blow, and Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan warned that our representation is about to sharply decline. How does she know? Because it's happened before. Louisiana's population is 1/3 Black, and Black people hold 2 of the 6 seats in Congress. But today's decision will likely eliminate a Black congressional district and open the floodgates for other former Confederate states to do the same. We've been here before. Historian Carol Anderson calls it white rage. In 1877, there were 8 Black members of Congress. By 1901, there were none. Even in the 1960s, there were no Black members of Congress from the South. When Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act in 1965, white Southerners fled the Democratic Party and became Republicans. And since then, no Democratic candidate for president has ever won the white vote. It happened again with Barack Obama. The majority of white voters voted against him both times. 1 year after he was reelected, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. That same day, officials here in Texas announced the nation's strictest voting ID law. And since then, states have passed hundreds of new restrictions. This is the endgame of a 6-decade-long campaign to destroy Black voting power. They don't want us to vote. They don't want us in Congress, and they damn sure don't want another Black president. They fear our vote more than anything else. Now let's give them a reason to.
Now, and I want to take this a step deeper into the principle of neutrality. The founders of this country and later people who wrote the 14th Amendment had a vision of a country where the law was colorblind. The goal was for the government to treat you as a citizen, not as a category. You see that he's running on and speaking of a lot of rhetoric that is dividing us instead of bringing us together in regards of race. See, I stand on what Morgan Freeman said. So Morgan Freeman said, if you want to kill racism, then don't give life to it or don't speak to it. And that's how you kill racism. The more you speak of it, the more you give it life. Now, what I'm getting to with the Constitution is over time, we drifted into this group identity theory or identity politics, whatever you want to call it. The media tries to tell you that this is about taking away voting power. But if you think about how insulting that actually is, it's the idea that a Black voter or a Hispanic voter isn't smart enough to choose a candidate unless the government groups them all together and together first. So let's look at a real life example of excellence that blows that theory out of the water. Look at Wesley Hunt in Texas. Texas's 38th district. This is a majority white affluent district. In 2022, they elected Wesley Hunt, a Black conservative and West Point grad. He didn't need a special map. He didn't need a racial safety net. He won because his ideas on energy, the economy, and the Constitution resonated with the people in his community, regardless of their race. That is the gold standard. That is what equality actually looks like. It's about a free market of ideas where the best policy wins. See, you can't sit there and really go based off of race if the maps is drawn out for fair competition. Take it back to the sports league example I used earlier in this video. If I know that I'm going to be guaranteed, Team A is going to be guaranteed to win the championship, then they'll just coast through or won't practice. Practice makes perfect. And the simple fact is, you be prepared so you don't have to get prepared. But if you don't have no incentive or motivation to make yourself be prepared, then you'll just wing it and then you'll just coast by and let your talent drag you across the finish line. but not actually consistency when it comes to your work ethic, when it comes to discipline and work ethic. So your talent may carry you, but it won't keep you. But this was different because when you looked at how the maps were drawn out, oh, the talent of just getting in the races. And once I get in to get in a position, I don't have to worry about leaving or ever being removed. Well, now this removes that because now guess what? Every single time that it's time to vote, you are going to be uprooted out of your seat, not based on identity, but based on policy, facts, results, which shapes everyday people day-to-day lives. So the reason the establishment is panicking is because they're losing grip on the narrative. And between 2020 and 2026, we have seen a massive shift where millions of minority voters are registering as Republicans or independents. They are realizing that the strongholds haven't served them. They see their cities in shambles. We got places like Chicago, New York, where the old guard has been in power for decades and they want something different. And you can take this spiritual or not. Romans chapter 2, verse 11. For there is no partiality with God. To me, it can be seen as a life gem as well. If there's no partiality in the eyes of God, there should be no partiality in the eyes of the law. So when the Supreme Court says we can't draw maps based on race, they aren't attacking anyone. And let me know down in the comments just to answer this, because I think this will definitely blow things and basically seal the deal out of the water. Is this stopping from any person, black, white, whatever race you are, is this stopping you from voting? Because you seen in the clip with Fox News that I showed you, the second clip, where they said they were trying to look at what the left were saying, if this house has ever or in any way, shape, or form blocked voters based on race. And you don't see nothing about that in what the Supreme Court basically deemed as what the verdict would be. So with that being said, they're inviting everyone to the table. They are saying to the Republicans, you have to go into these neighborhoods and show why your plan for the economy is better. They are saying to the Democrats, you can't just take these voters for granted anymore. It creates accountability, right? It forces leadership. The Confederate state talk you hear is on the news. You hear on the news is a distraction. It's designed to keep you looking at the past so you don't notice that the people in charge today haven't done their jobs. When you remove the government subsidized safety net for the politician, the voter finally gains the leverage, which in the eyes of a democracy, even though we actually a constitutional republic, and just to distinguish the two, because I like to distinguish it, democracy is just based on the popular vote who voted the people in, and a constitutional republic is that the people will choose who represent them. But if you have a map drawn out that a representative that was voted all the way back from 1993 is already in their favor, to no matter if your vote, whatever your vote says, they're already going to stay in position. Is it really a democracy, let alone a constitutional republic? I'll leave that to you. But let's check out the last clip.
Now you know why the Democrats are fighting with the ICE agents. The Southern Poverty Law Center has a problem. The Leering Center has a problem. Now you know why the Democrats are fighting so hard, because they know everything that they're trying to do is unconstitutional as far as the redistricting gerrymandering is concerned. They're trying to find voters. Since 2020 to 2024, they've lost like 4.5 million voters. A lot of them have switched over to the Republican side, and new registration voters are going to the Republican side. They know they're hemorrhaging voters, and this is the only way they can figure out to try to stay in power and to control Congress.
All right. So now that I gave you guys insight for my Christians, I gave you guys scripture. For those who are not spiritual, I gave you a life gem. However, what I do want to point out is when it comes to the census, it doesn't count if the individual is legal. It only counts if they're here in America and as a body. So speaking to the president, if he's removing illegals, then these maps that were at one point drawn out based on body count for the majority and minority districts, then if there's no illegals ideally here in the United States crossing the border illegally, breaking the law, then wouldn't those maps be changed according to the census? Because you'll actually have individuals who are citizens who are here that are legal, obviously, and then it won't change. It won't basically work in the favor of one party or another because you have the equal amount of people that's actually supposed to be here that are here legally as a legal immigrant and as an American citizen. So bringing this all together, we have to ask ourselves this: what kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want a country where we are constantly being separated, labeled, and pitted against each other based on our skin color? Or do we want a country where we are just Americans? From my perspective, the hyphenated era, the black American, the white American needs to end. If you have that blue passport and you were born on this land, you are a citizen of the greatest nation on earth. You hit the lottery. I mean, it's the reason why a lot of people want to come to the United States of America. So the reason these court cases in 2026 are so important is that they are clearing the brush for a new generation of leaders who aren't afraid to compete. And we've seen abysmal voter turnout in this country, sometimes less than 25%. And I believe a big reason for that is that people feel like the game is rigged. They think, why should I vote if the map was drawn to make sure my guy wins or my guy loses anyway? When you move to fair, population-based districts where every election is a toss-up, you'll see the energy come back to our communities. That's the bigger point and the bigger takeaway and the deeper conversation I am pointing out through this whole thing as I broke it down, because you'll see politicians actually knocking on doors and answering tough questions instead of giving you the political word salad without really giving you an answer because their job depends on it, as it should be, because you work for the people, not party. Now it's not party over people, it's actually people over party. And I want to leave you with this thought: a guaranteed outcome is the enemy of progress, whether it's in business, in your personal life, or in politics. If you aren't forced to compete, you will eventually fail. And the Democrats are fighting for the map because they can't stand on their agenda. All they have to do is actually speak on their policies on the border, their economy, and the Second Amendment are out of touch with real people. So they want to keep the safety net of gerrymandering. But the Supreme Court is pushing us toward the truth that every vote must be earned and every leader must be accountable. I don't care what party you're on. So I want to hear from you guys and hear you guys' thoughts in the comments. Do you think we should keep sorting people by race, or are you ready for a system where we just vote for the best person that's qualified based on merit for the job? You can still vote no matter what the race you are. Voting rights not taken away. It's just fair playing field. I mean, if anybody has played a sport, you would think you would want an equal level playing field, not for things to turn out with the other individual you're competing against having the upper hand just automatically. Is that really fair? Is that really true true pure competition? I think not, or I think you would think not. So don't let the media tell you what to think. Look at the results in your own city. If you're tired of the word salad and you want real talk, you're in the right place. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure your notifications are on so you never miss an upload. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay sharp, and keep thinking for yourself. On that note, family, peace.